welcome to Graceful Healing, a podcast to get straight talk about healing and living again. My name is Maureen Lake. I'm a holistic health coach, speaker, author, and thyroid disease fighter. Each week, I'll be bringing you graceful conversations to inspire you to seek new ways to hit the reset button to catapult your health and vitality to new levels. Listen in and open your heart to all the new possibilities. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hello, listeners. Before I introduce my guest today, I just wanted to share a little bit about our retreat, The Joyful Journey. If you've been called to Tucson, we have a rare opportunity to treat you to a special weekend where your sole focus will be on you. This fun-filled, educational, and spiritual weekend is all-inclusive, including delicious farm-to-table meals at the beautiful Tanque Verde Ranch. Each day will be tailored to you and your intentions, including a personal nutritional analysis, guided healing, meditation, journaling, and lots of play. If this sounds good to you, you can contact me at gracefulhealingpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll send you all the juicy details. Come join the fun with us September 20th through 22nd. I have the most amazing guest to share with you today, Jenny Carr. Jenny is the anti-inflammatory expert. Her work is so impressive and necessary for so many people who suffer from a chronic illness. Her journey, as she shares it, will touch your soul. It started when this mama bear decided to help her child, who suffered needlessly from a sensory integration problem, and continued on when she fell deathly ill from two things: international parasites and severe Lyme disease. The neurotoxins that these released caused paralysis, an inability for her to speak, and fatigue so severe she literally could not get out of bed. This woman and her story is amazing. And the other thing that's so incredible is she's giving you a free copy of her internationally best-selling book, Piece of Cake: The Secret to Anti-Inflammatory Diet. It's loaded with delicious recipes, and I'm speaking from experience. I've made many of them, and they are delicious. She teaches you so many key concepts, how to swap out sugar, and so many other things that we eat every day that's inflammatory to our bodies. But in addition, at the end of our interview, Jenny shares two amazing tips that you can try today for as little as 2 weeks that will literally change the level of inflammation in your body. I know you're going to enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoyed listening to it. Fasten your seatbelts. This one's going to be amazing. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to share Jenny Carr with you today. She is the anti-inflammatory expert. She's also the best-selling author of the book called Piece of Cake: The Secret to Anti-Inflammatory Diet. And I will share with you, I have this book. I've tried numerous recipes, and they are delicious. So welcome, Jenny. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. One of the things I think is so fascinating is your personal story, because I know it helped land you where you are today. So can you just share with everybody this incredible, sad tale that you have that ends up so happy? So
yeah, thank you. It's really interesting. It's kind of a two-part story, and it started really with my children. And my next book, The Clean Eating Kid, comes out January 21st, was the first book I wanted to write. But I knew that we needed to have almost like a Bible to anti-inflammatory eating, something that was just really embedded the roots into how to swap foods out so you don't feel overwhelmed or deprived. But like I said, my son was my teacher. When I was pregnant with him, I had a rough go with my pregnancy, just like extra hormones out of whack, tons of weight gain, really feeling sad. I had been a Division I athlete before that. And I know a lot of people, some people love pregnancy and some people don't. I did not love it. But the difficult time came after that. The first year of Tasha's life, he was very, very sick. And it was just these chronic infections, ear infections, adenoid infections, tonsil infections that became more significant. Every other month he was on antibiotics. This poor little baby. I wiped out his gut biome. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what inflammation was. I didn't know. I was just a new mom wanting to do what was best for my kid and listening to the doctor because I thought that was what we're supposed to do, right? Which sometimes we are, but I didn't realize there was like another side to the coin. And sure enough, these chronic infections built up as the inflammation in his body built up. And he ended up with abscesses in his throat. He stopped breathing. He had life-threatening infections that put us in and out of the hospital for months and weeks at a time. He was in ICU. It was really, really scary. And at the time I was teaching middle school. I was a middle school teacher for 10 years, Amori, and I know you were a teacher too. So It's so fun to have that in common.
I know.
Yeah. But so you will appreciate this, Maureen. He was like in the ICU and I'm sitting there trying to do sub plans, right? Like it was just, I was so spread, so thin, pulled in so many directions. And when we finally came home after multiple operations and multiple just long stunts at the hospital, I started to get quite ill. I think the stress of the situation really took a toll on me and not being able to eat well. And was it just all these things?
I bet.
Yeah. And so I started gaining even more weight. My hormones got more out of whack. I became super depressed. I went on antidepressant meds and I have always been the girl that loves life. So this was like a shocker to me. I wanted to go to bed at 5:30 or 6 every single night. I was exhausted, extreme fatigue, bloating, nausea, chronic bloating. It was just all these some of those were more extreme, not life-threatening, but just more intense symptoms. And some were more subtle, like nausea. I just kind of told myself, I guess I'm just going to be the girl that's always nauseous, right? Like I just started to accept some of these symptoms. But as time went on and they grew more and more intense, my parents said, look, you need to go to a doctor. And I went to multiple doctors and was told I was getting an autoimmune condition, but they didn't know what kind, which was very helpful, right?
Yeah, right.
I was like, yay. So my mom, who again it's this multi-generational kind of healing journey my family's been on. My mom had Lyme disease for over 20 years, owned a Western clothing company, and she sold her business so that she could commit her life to healing because nothing that she had tried had worked. And she started working with an anti-inflammatory health coach. And for the first time in her life, her Lyme symptoms were healing. And so she told me, look, you have all these chronic symptoms. I don't know if it'll help, but it's worth a try. I feel amazing. And this was over a decade ago. So this, inflammation was not a buzzword back then.
No, not at all.
And so sure enough, I tried it. I felt amazing. My symptoms melted away. The pot of gold was for me. I had this little boy. I was teaching, working long hours, and I felt so grounded. I could think so clearly. I felt joy and happiness and ease and clarity. It was the mental and emotional piece for me, honestly, that was even surpassed improving the physical symptoms. So I decided, well, I'm going to keep doing this because I feel so good. I'm more patient with my students, with my own child, with my husband, with myself.
Right.
So I kept up with it. And what I didn't know is that learning how to maintain this way of eating is what would save my life in the future. And not only mine, but soon after we got back from the hospital, my son, we found out he had a severe sensory condition. A drop of water would land on his shirt. He was like 1.5, almost 2 at this time. And a drop of water would land on his shirt and he'd scream and Mom, he'd start crying and want to tear his shirt off because it hurt his skin so bad. He couldn't put multiple layers of clothes at recess in the wintertime. We live in Jackson Hole. It's cold here.
Yeah.
So to go out in the winter, he had to put multiple layers on, and it would take him all of recess, if not more, to get dressed. So he never actually got to go outside because it was so uncomfortable for him on his skin. Wow. He had a sensory condition, which also really impacts a lot of kids with their attention, like ADD, ADHD type symptoms.
Oh, sure.
difficulty with transitions, your organizational, like written, well, not just written, organizational in general, like methods. And beyond that, he was so young that I think in experiencing these learning difficulties, it really impacted his ability to make friends, to be successful in a social setting, because he's just at this age where he's trying to learn all of these components and put them together in his life as a little nugget. And so I thought to myself, well, if eating this way helped myself, it helped my mom, let's do a science experiment. Let's take 2 weeks, because I had learned that it takes 2 weeks to push inflammation out of your body from the top 6 inflammatory foods.
Well, you know what? That's not that long when you think of the grand scheme of things.
No, it's really, really not. Yeah. And I'm telling you right here, right now, everyone listening, if there's one thing you're inspired to do, well, I will tell you something you can do before we're off this call, that you can melt inflammation without changing your diet. But if you're inspired to change your diet, do this science experiment for 2 weeks, and I will tell you exactly what to do. It will change your life. The magic that comes from it is truly amazing. And I didn't know that at the time, but when I did this science experiment, I took out processed sugar, cow dairy, refined oils, GMOs, wheat, and alcohol, which is not pertaining to my son, but that's a good one for adults to know about, right? So I took out these inflammatory foods. I swapped them out for options that taste similar but don't inflame, which is the premise of my book, Piece of Cake, The Secret to an Anti-Inflammatory Diet. And you'll all be getting a free copy of that before we get off today. But I packed all of his breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, snacks, the whole thing with integrity for 2 weeks. I did not alter my path. I really stuck to it. And he had a massive turnaround. So I kept at it. And within 2 months, he was 85% better, Maureen. His sensory significantly improved. It was amazing.
That is amazing. And I just have to tell you, as a former special education teacher, your new book is going to be so powerful for so many moms.
Yeah.
That Clean Eating Kid. I can't wait for that to launch.
Thank you. I'm so excited. And the Clean Eating Kid, so Piece of Cake talks about the top 6 inflammatory foods, how to swap them out. And then the second half, like Maureen said, is all these amazing recipes. Like I'm looking at it now. It's cookies and bars and brownies. It's comfort food, that the things we usually fall off the clean eating wagon with. I tell you how to make them anti-inflammatory style. But the Clean Eating Kid, I walk you down the grocery store aisles in that second half. And I say, here's the foods that we put in our grocery store cart free of the top 6 inflammatory foods, because I know as moms, as caregivers, grandparents, and even those of us who are kids at heart, we're busy and we just want to be able to sometimes go to the grocery store and maybe you want to buy some cookies, or maybe you want to buy some chips, or maybe you want to buy, some bread or different things and that are quick and easy. And I tell you exactly which brands to buy and what to look for. So amazing. It's just very exciting.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. Where were you like 20 years ago?
Well, I didn't know about any of this 20 years ago. And that again goes back to just my son being my teacher, guiding me through this whole process. Really, my question as we came out of those 2 months was, okay, my life feels completely different when I eat this way. And my son's life, both academically, socially, emotionally, at home, everything is he's a different kid when he's eating this way. So my guiding question became, how do I create this anti-inflammatory eating for myself and my family without me feeling overwhelmed and without them feeling deprived? I didn't want my kids to feel like they couldn't celebrate birthdays and have treats and all the things that food means socially, right?
Yeah.
And so that really became my guiding question, and is the work that I do. I'm this food swap, like, I don't even know what to call myself, but yes, I'm alive. Like, any food you want, I will find you the swap anti-inflammatory style. And it's so fun. It's a really fun thing to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was the root foundation of this work. And like I said, what I didn't know is that maintaining this way of eating, not doing it for 30 days or 2 weeks or a couple months, maintaining it for many, many, many years and learning that it's as easy as breathing, right? I don't have to think about following anti-inflammatory eating. I just do it. It's just my life now.
Mm-hmm.
That is what saved my life, because I ended up with a severe parasite infection I've been an adventure traveler, traveled all over the world, fishing in the Amazon and trekking through Thailand, safari in Africa.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
super
amazing.
fun.
Yeah.
So fun. But what I never thought of is parasites. I like literally never even glimpsed my mind. And when you pick up international parasites, unlike getting a virus from a cold or a flu where you become less susceptible, your immune system gets stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite with international parasites. Once you pick them up, it's almost like you become a magnet to pick up more.
Oh, gosh.
And yeah, I know, right? And I ended up with holes in almost all my organs. They ate away in many of my endocrine glands. And I also ended up with 4 strains of Lyme disease. It was in my brainstem, my spinal cord.
Oh my gosh.
Well, a very rare virus that causes leukemia.
Now, how long was it after you finally figured out Tasha's difficulties that this happened to you?
It was years and years later. So about 4 or 5 years later that this really struck the chord. My dad and I had gone down to the Amazon fishing together, and unfortunately we both picked sides. He started to get sick about 9 months before me.
Oh.
And we were trying to figure out I was trying to figure out what in the world had happened, because my dad had very high cholesterol. He had all kinds of health issues going on. And I coached him through this way of eating, this protocol that I put people through, and all of his symptoms went away. And then years later, all of a sudden, it's like a lot of the things were coming back: bloating, digestive disorders, extreme fatigue, adrenal fatigue, all these things. And I couldn't figure it out. And I was so worried about him. And so when we finally figured out it was parasites, for him, I still didn't believe that I had them. Jenny, you have to go get the same test. You have to get this done. We were in the Amazon together. We were like diving off of the rocks one day. The fishing was not so great for a couple of days because there was a huge flood. So we were like jumping off of rocks and waters. I mean, it was just not, that's a whole nother podcast what happened. I'll just put it that way. And so it was really a battle. When you have a parasite and Lyme die-off, anyone that has had candida die-off or parasite, Lyme, mold, you know that they release a neurotoxin. And the neurotoxins that were released from, my body, I can't comprehend how I had as many parasites and bacteria and pathogens in my body as I did. It was so severe that my legs became paralyzed.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't get out of bed because the spinning was so bad that I would lie in bed just holding onto the sheets because I thought the bed was going to flip over on me. I couldn't speak a lot of the times. Like I could think, but there's a thing in education, you might know this, called failure output. And I had something like that. It had to do with our nervous system. I actually couldn't get words out of my mouth. The fatigue was so intense that getting up to get a glass of water or getting up to maybe switch a load of laundry, that was my activity for the day, like done. I was exhausted. It was a very, very scary time in my life because it took me about a year and a half to have an accurate diagnosis of the parasites. And it took another year beyond that to have an accurate diagnosis of Lyme. And then about 6 more months to have the diagnosis of the virus that causes leukemia. So it was like one thing after another. My body was just totally under siege. And it's where I began to learn all about upregulating the detox pathways and binders and neurotoxins. And really there's a whole protocol, like besides just eating clean, how do we support the body when we have these pathogens, both to kill them and to support the body so it can eliminate the toxins and then rebuild. It's a process, and never in my wildest dreams did I think I would become an expert. But alas, it is where we are.
Absolutely. Gosh.
Yeah.
So basically you were sick for maybe like another 5 years or so, or?
About 5 years, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. And then, so you were eating clean, but and following, I'm sure, doctor's orders, whatever kind of medication they gave you, I'm assuming. But was there anything else that you did to?
Oh, so many things. I did so many things. I always say clean eating saved my life because, well, I should say anti-inflammatory living. It wasn't just eating. It was breathing, taking deep breaths, meditation. It was drinking enough water so that I could support the liver in the methylation process to push out the toxins, right? It was this whole encompassing aspect because there was times I was living off of 1% of energy. Like I really, really came close to not waking up a few different times. And if I had not been drinking water, had I had some Oreos or any sort of inflammatory food, I mean, it was that close that it would have pushed me over. There was just too many toxins that were built up in my body that already I couldn't process and my body couldn't handle. And so what did I do besides diet and lifestyle? Absolutely. I did so many things. I did ozone therapy and IV therapy using different supplements. I took herbs. I learned about using essential oils with coconut oil to help crack open the biofilms. I did hyperbaric chambers. I mean, you name it. I've done every type of, they call it biohacking, right? So there's ancient biohacking and modern day biohacking. I've done all the biohacking, energy work. I'm very well versed in all of these different things now. Not that I do them, but in terms of just understanding them and what they can do for the body, because it is a holistic approach that is required when you have that level of pathogen infection in your body.
So is it basically waiting for the pathogens to die off and leave your body? And in the meantime, you're trying to keep your body as healthy as you can? Or like, because how long does it take before these pathogens and viruses, since they're international, they're different than what we're exposed here commonly. How long does it take for them to like go full cycle before they actually die? Do you know?
It depends for the type of pathogen. You can have viruses and bacteria and parasites. You can have mold. You can have candida, fungus. So it depends on the pathogen. But if we're talking about parasites, one adult parasite can lay 5,000 eggs in a day.
Oh my God.
And the first time
I forgot about the eggs. Jeez.
Oh yeah. And that the eggs are really hard to kill. Like you can get rid of the adults. The eggs are an entirely different thing because they basically are wrapped up in biofilms to protect them. And a biofilm is kind of like a bunker. Like if you remember in 1999, there was this huge thing of like, oh, is the world going to end? And I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I remember going to Montana and seeing these bunkers that people put like food storage and they thought they were going to go there. That's like the biofilm is like the parasite's bunker. And Lyme has these biofilms as well. Bacterial spirochetes have these biofilms as well. And so what can happen is the eggs can just stay there for years and not hatch until you're ready. So when it's an international parasite, two things, you have to know what to take that will eliminate it. And for me, I did both Western and holistic medicine. The Western medicine itself, even though it was like taking like a chemo pill, it was like atomic bomb going off in my body, which made me very ill to try and kill the parasites. It still wasn't enough to fully get rid of them, which the doctors had never seen that before. I mean, this was an extremely severe case. And so I found another practitioner that uses quantum neurology, which is a form of muscle testing, but very scientifically based, and was able to, he had a huge array of different herbs from all around the world. So if you go to a country, we'll just say I was in Botswana in Africa, and they eat a certain type of spice or herb or root or vegetable all the time, more than likely they're doing that, especially in the tropical type locations, to support their body so that it can kill off the parasites. So you really want to pay attention to the foods that those people are eating.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So once we started figuring that out, it was a long journey. But when you kill them, again, you have the adults that you hopefully killed. The adults can go into a biofilm. Parasites and Lyme can change their DNA.
Oh my God.
They can change the DNA so that they are no longer susceptible to the method of either supplements or medication that you're using to try to kill them. They're the most advanced, intelligent life form, I guess, that I'm aware of. It's crazy. And so using vibrational frequency, using diet, using herbs, using supplements, all of these different things, using essential oils and coconut oil as a carrier, because that's the only thing I knew that would go in and break through the biofilm. So using all these different modalities is really what supported me so much and allowed me to stop the cycle eventually. But as you, like we said, it took 5 years.
Yeah.
So 5 years of day in and day out. I mean, I had to quit my job for years, and I literally would go to some sort of practitioner every single day.
Wow.
It was very intense. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And then in the meantime, you're raising your children, and
Trying.
Terrible.
That was the hardest part. Still makes me almost want to cry. I've done so much work to get over this, but or move through it, not to get over it. But, there's a lot of guilt, I think, that comes with someone who has a chronic illness, especially when it's impacting their loved ones so much. And for me, I had a little boy who was 5 and a little girl who was 1 when this began.
Oh my gosh.
And, it lasted for 5 years almost. So it was a greater part of my daughter's life that she saw me in bed all the time. I couldn't do homework with them. I couldn't bring them to camps. I mean, sometimes I could. It would come in waves, and there would be days, sometimes even a couple of weeks, where I was like, okay, I'm doing good. And sometimes as I progressed towards the end of those 5 years, there would be months at a time that I was doing well. But then I would do too much and I'd get knocked down and I'd be in bed again. And, my son had to learn, run and get this certain supplement, this carbonized bamboo that binds toxins right away. Cause I would get a warning. I would feel this extreme fatigue. My eyelids would get heavy. It's almost like if you've ever been to the dentist or had a surgery, they give you a laughing gas that they have you count backwards from 10 and then time around 6 you're awake, you're asleep. It was like that, where so quickly you're like, something, I can feel the toxins flooding, and you just feel this, you're just totally out of it. You feel drugged. And there were times I'd have to pull over. My kids would be in the car and call my mom and say, I'm about to pass out.
The closest I've come to that is, I was undiagnosed hypothyroidism for at least 10 years. And when it really got really bad, now I have Hashimoto's, but I would feel like a black veil just kind of coming down from my head and covering my whole body. And then just feeling like I was trying to walk through a tar in a way. And then I would just have to lay down. I would be so incredibly fatigued. And the only thing I could kind of relate it to was the worst fatigue you ever feel in your first trimester of pregnancy. But even then, it was probably worse than that if I was to give it full credit. But I just can't even imagine having that day in and day out. And oh my gosh. I mean, my own experience with it was limited compared to yours. And I can't even imagine what it was like for you.
Well, and this is an important topic to talk about, because I always say, if you're listening right now and you're inspired, you're moved, and whether it's you have some sort of chronic symptoms, which inflammation affects our chronic symptoms. If you have a symptom, whether it's been diagnosed by a doctor because it's really severe or it's just subtle and nagging, it's the chronic symptoms that tell you there's inflammation in your body and we need to get it out before it becomes more and more severe and eventually could become life-threatening, right? But beyond the symptoms, it's annoying to have pain in the body. It's not fun. It's painful, right? Or to be fatigued. But there's your reason for healing, your reason for taking action, your reason for motivating yourself to feel better is not about making the pain go away. It's not about having more energy, right? For me, it was about, I just want to do homework with my kids. I want to bring them to their soccer games. I want to be able to say yes to having a play date because I have enough energy that I feel like I can responsibly take care of, my kids and theirs. I wanted to actually have enough energy to stay up and go to dinner and a movie with my husband. I can't tell you how many years I just would be in bed all day, all night. It completely impacts our personal life so much more than the annoyance or discomfort of the symptom itself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you're depleted of energy or like your soul just gets sucked dry. That's what kind of how I found it. And I mean, I remember just sitting on the couch, just wanting to make dinner, but then I didn't have the energy to go to the grocery store. And for the longest time, we just did takeout because my husband was working long hours and I was too exhausted to cook. And then after, I became a health coach and started learning all the ins and outs of what I needed to know as well. My life changed around, but still, I mean, it took me a while to figure out my triggers, and I definitely have triggers. And I sometimes succumb to sugar, and I know that's one of my major triggers, and we're only human, but I do pay the price. There's no doubt about it.
It's so, and I love that you bring that up, Maureen, because I believe that one of the most important work that we are doing for people is helping them to make the connections. And this is both true of our youngest generation, for those of you who are like, ooh, my child has chronic symptom, I want to help them heal through diet, or for you, for your personal self. We must become more awake to the way our body speaks to us. We need to begin listening. And when we have indigestion and we take Tums, when we have a headache and we take Advil, when we're tired so we drink coffee, that is not listening to our body. That is numbing out the voice it is using to try to speak to us.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
We have to begin to listen and to take action based off of what it's telling us. So instead of coffee, drink more water. You actually will gain energy, right? Instead of taking Advil, just take the processed sugar out of your body or out of your diet, and the pain will melt away. There's so many things, and for indigestion, maybe there's leaky gut, maybe we need to look at greens, or right. There's so many different ways that we can respond to our body. But what I have found in over a decade of coaching people, and I have a 100% success rate for my VIP clients and helping them reverse, if not significantly improve their chronic symptoms through diet and lifestyle. And that's not because of me. It's because of science. Inflammation is rooted into all your chronic symptoms. If we take the inflammation away, if we melt the inflammation away, the symptoms begin to reverse. It's science. The tricky part is knowing, well, what's going to inflame me the most, right? Is it the nightshades?
Yeah.
Is it the tomatoes? Or is it the processed sugar? Right. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of people is I eat really clean almost all the time.
Right.
It's like 80-20 or 90-10. If you're still experiencing chronic symptoms and there's a 10 or 20% where you're still eating, whatever inflammatory foods, then do a science experiment for 2 weeks. And for just 2 weeks, this isn't the rest of your life, but do it for 2 weeks and close that gap to see what the possibility is of your healing. I would say 99% chance you're going to feel like a different person. And that doesn't mean you have to necessarily eat that way the whole rest of your life either, but we have to rebuild and heal the tissues and the systems and everything in the body. So how can we do that without feeling deprived? Let's swap out processed sugar for unrefined coconut sugar, for maple syrup, pure maple syrup, for raw honey, for raw agave, or stevia or monk fruit, for those of you who just like a sweetener rather than a sugar. And you can make any cake, muffin, bread, cupcake, bar, brownie, ice cream using those things. It is amazing. You don't have to feel deprived, right? Let's swap out wheat for almond flour or coconut flour. Maybe even cassava flour works for you. Let's swap out cow dairy for goat or sheep dairy, or coconut milk or an almond milk. Let's make sure we're aware of GMOs. And if we're buying anything with corn, soy, or wheat, which are the top 3 most genetically modified foods, make sure it's certified non-GMO or don't eat it, right? Let's take alcohol, and if we use it to relax, find a different way to relax. If we do it socially, let's put some kombucha in like a cocktail glass, or sparkling water and a twist of lime in a cocktail glass, and drink that instead. Let's just begin getting curious with the way that we can cook and eat that still is fun, that doesn't feel overwhelming, that doesn't feel deprived, and that allows you to heal at the same time.
And that's one of the things I have to tell you that I love, love, love about your book, Piece of Cake, is because when I realized that sugar was a trigger for me, and I had to really do some soul searching, I didn't realize how addicted I was to artificial sweeteners. Really, truly, totally addicted. So I went cold turkey, which wasn't easy because the headaches were unbelievable. But then when I read your book and I was able to do these incredible substitutions and still have like a sweet tea or a dessert. Like you made one woman here so happy.
Oh,
it was incredible. And then, gluten is another trigger for me. So just having your book has helped in that way as well. So I can't recommend your book highly enough. Oh, it's amazing.
So but
your recipes are so yummy. That's the thing. They're delicious.
When you have a 2-year-old and he has to eat this way, he wants French toast and pancakes and pizza and lasagna and mac and cheese and cookies and brownies, all the things that really if we're honest with ourselves, we want him too, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was, again, he was my teacher. How do we make this happen? And how can I get you those things? So they taste similar, but don't have the inflammatory ingredients.
Yeah, it's amazing that you had to go through such difficulty to come out at the other end, and such a beautiful gift you're giving to everybody from what you've learned.
So many people during my journey said, you will see this as a gift in the end, right? There's going to be, for the darkest of dark times, the greatest of great times are ahead. And when you're in that dark of a spot, I didn't want to live for a long time. I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live. I was just thought this was the rest of my life. At my early 30s, I was doomed for bed rest. I was doomed to no longer have a career. I was doomed to not be able to be a mom and a wife. I was so scared that was going to be my life. And if anyone's listening right now and you feel like that, I get it. Mm-hmm. Keep taking action. Because had I given up on myself, I would have been bedridden the rest of my life.
Yeah. Gosh.
5 years feeling that sick and still taking course day in and day out, really being in integrity with anti-inflammatory living. And now the Lyme is totally gone. The parasites are completely gone. I don't even have any results for an autoimmune condition, which is supposedly impossible, but it's gone. I feel I still get a little bit tired if I don't take care of myself. Mm-hmm. I'm still feeling there's still some neurotoxins that were stored in my fat that have to come out. So there's things still healing, mm-hmm. but it's amazing the difference. Amazing the difference.
Oh, congratulations. So amazing. So where are you now, Jenny? I mean, we know that you've written one book and you have another one launching in January, but tell us how other people can find you and get the help that they need.
Yes. So if you go to www.jennycarrhealth.com, that's JennyCarr Health, HEALTH.com, you can learn more about inflammation. And if you go to jennycarrhealth.com/free book, you can grab a free copy of my book, Piece of Cake, The Secret to an Anti-Inflammatory Diet, while I walk you through the top 6 inflammatory foods, how to swap them out, how to adopt anti-inflammatory living, as well as 40 full color, beautiful anti-inflammatory recipes.
Not only beautiful, they are delicious.
Thank you so much. And I also I always forget to say this, I feel like it's like my secret undercover group, but we have a Facebook group called Freedom from Inflammation on Facebook. It's a closed group, but feel free to search that and ask to be accepted, and we will accept you. There's a lot of inspiring, amazing community. There's over 6,000 people in there, and so it's pretty fun.
Oh, awesome. And I'll also have all this information on my blog post too, for anybody that might not have a pen or pencil to write anything down. So
yeah. Well, before I leave, I want to give everyone one tip, Maureen.
Okay.
The one thing that they can do, because if you're listening right now, you might be like, oh my gosh, the top 6 inflammatory foods, that sounds overwhelming, right? When it comes to diet, just focus on processed sugar. Become a renegade researcher with processed sugar. it's in breads, it's in sauces, it's in soups, like it's in sausage, it's hidden all over in deli meats. So really become a renegade researcher, and I walk you through how to do that in Piece of Cake. But by doing so, by default, if you swap the processed sugar out for those other items I mentioned, which taste similar but don't inflame, by default, many of the top 6 inflammatory foods fall to the wayside. So you don't have to be thinking about all 6, just focus on processed sugar. And then if you want a tip that has nothing to do with diet, but is the number one way you can melt inflammation from your body without changing your diet, it's to start drinking more water. Mm-hmm. So if you do have a chronic symptom or multiple chronic symptoms, then you can be sure there is chronic inflammation in your body, whether it's from diet or pathogens, stress, not enough water, not enough movement. Those are the kind of, or environmental toxins. Those are the top 6 kind of reasons we get chronic inflammation. But either way, you can begin to flush it out by drinking a gallon of water per day as an adult. Now, that's a lot more water than the FDA recommends to stay hydrated. We're not talking about hydration. We are talking about supporting the liver so that it can, what's called, have the methylation process. The methylation process is what allows our liver to properly detoxify. And water is to our liver what gasoline is to a car. If our gas tank is on empty, we're going to sputter along the side of the highway and eventually the car is going to stop. Mm-hmm. Same thing with our liver. If we don't have enough clean, pure water, I'm not talking about water with natural or artificial flavors. I'm not talking about water and juices, like just straight up water, right? If we don't have enough of that, then the same thing happens to our liver. It kind of slows down, sputters, it can't process toxins. Those toxins are then stored in the areas that you are most susceptible to, which is why inflammation looks different for each person. It goes to the areas you're most susceptible to, whether it's a genetic predisposition, overuse, just an area that you're, again, I don't like to say weak, but just an area that's not quite as strong in the body. Mm-hmm. And so drink a lot of water because it supports the liver. It floods the inflammation out. Will you pee a bunch? Yes. Is that worth making the pain in your body go away so you can play with your grandkids?
Yes.
I don't know. It would for me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So begin, again, and I always say do a 2-week science experiment. Do this for 2 weeks. See how your body changes. If you go onto Amazon, I have over 20 or 25 reviews. And the most common thing that people write about, they say, I did the 2-week science experiment with your water, and I cannot tell you the difference. I have more energy, better sleep. I lost 10 pounds. The pain in my body melted away. I haven't even changed my food swaps yet. Wow. It is amazing what water does for us, you guys. So definitely take that advice.
Oh, you know what? I'm taking it because I have the processed sugar pretty well under my belt, but I am not good at drinking enough water. So I am taking on this 2-week challenge, and I'm going to let you know how I do.
Hey, I love it.
Absolutely.
So good. And there's actually a chapter dedicated in my book that tells you the tricks, the tip to get a gallon of water in per day, because that can feel like a lot. And I have a really easy, amazing way to help make that happen.
Well, I'm getting your book back out and rereading that chapter. That's for sure.
Awesome. Oh, so good. Well, Thank you so much, Maureen.
Oh, thank you. I've loved this episode and I can't wait to share it with everybody. Thanks again, Jenny.
Have a great day.
You too. Hey, thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you can, take a moment and give us a review. And please join the VIP room in Facebook for more discussion and insights. You can find us at Graceful Healing Podcast VIP room. See you there and see you next time.